On November 22nd, 2013, I went with my family to see the new Disney movie Frozen in the theater, the same day it was wide released. We were kind of unsure whether or not it would be any good, and in fact, it actually took some convincing for me to even get my family to come see it with me. The trailers didn't feature the main characters. It was supposedly based on the Hans Christian Andersen story The Snow Queen, but bore little resemblance to it. And while all of Disney's recent animated films, The Princess and the Frog, Tangled, Winnie the Pooh, and Wreck-It Ralph were all great, it was still too early to know if that trend would continue. However, as soon as the lights went down and that Norse chant started to play over the opening logos, I knew we were in for something special. My eyes remained transfixed to the screen throughout the entire runtime, and as we walked out, I told everyone that not only did I think Frozen was a great film, but it was a once-in-a-generation kind of film, the kind that would define the current era of Disney. And I really hoped it would be successful. Well, as we all know, it was. The film practically exploded into pop culture in a way seemingly unprecedented even for a Disney film. Grossing over $1 billion at the worldwide box office, Frozen became, at the time, the highest grossing animated film ever. Its songs, especially in Let It Go, played constantly on the radio. Merchandise for the film was sold everywhere, and it seemed impossible to go anywhere where Frozen wasn't present in some way. Finally, after sweeping most of the awards circuits, Frozen became the first film by Walt Disney Animation Studios to win the Academy Award for Best Animated Feature. But, as Newton's third law dictates, with every action there must be an equal and opposite reaction. As the film's popularity grew, so did the backlash against it. Even now, 11 years later, Frozen's detractors seem to be as loud as they've ever been. In fact, I can almost hear them right now. Oh my god, Frozen is so overrated. It was only made to sell toys to little girls and have its annoying songs play non-stop on the radio. Nothing about this movie is interesting or innovative at all. I don't want to know why love is actually deeper than romance or why romantic love can be deceptive. Romance is the only type of love that matters. I'm a guy. I don't care about the love between two sisters. Also, Elsa totally should have been the villain. Misunderstood outcast characters should always be villains. I don't want to sympathize with that type of character. I don't want to be challenged. I want a safe, boring experience. I don't want a safe, boring experience. And that's exactly what Frozen is. It's terrible. And by the way, Tangled is way better. Because Tangled didn't challenge me at all. It just gave me exactly what I expected, and that's what every Disney movie should do. Shouldn't do. I don't know what I mean. But Frozen is terrible, and I'm smart. And Tangled's better. Did I mention that Tangled is better? The truth is, though, the naysayers are wrong. Frozen is actually a masterpiece, a far deeper and more complex film than anyone gives it credit for. It's a bold, daring, and risky work of creative art that has a lot on its mind and explores its themes in masterful fashion. What I'm trying to say is, hello, extraordinary people. I'm Daniel, and today we're going to talk about Frozen. Before we get into it, though, I must warn you that if you've somehow not seen Frozen by now, you may want to go watch it first, as I will be discussing the entire plot of the film and spoiling everything that happens. And seriously, if you haven't seen Frozen yet, you should watch it anyway. It's really good. Frozen was a groundbreaking movie for Disney, not just because of its box office and awards, but in the story it tells, the themes it explores, and the way in which it explores them. The closest movie I can compare it to is actually the DreamWorks film Shrek. Both films are fundamentally about deconstructing Disney's animated fairy tale filmography and the themes and ideas those movies express, particularly about the subject of love. And while I think Shrek, and Shrek 2, which by the way is the only Shrek sequel that exists, are both great movies, I actually think Frozen did it better. The writing in Frozen is extremely tight, with every character, event, and idea relating to and expressing different facets of the core theme. Even the film's title refers not only to the snow and ice present in the film's aesthetic, but also to the feeling of not being loved. The film's aesthetic and use of ice and snow also support and enhance this theme. Frozen notably does not center around a relationship between a man and a woman the way many other Disney films and Shrek do. That kind of relationship is an element here, and we'll get to it, but of course the main narrative thrust of Frozen involves the relationship between two sisters, Anna and Elsa, the princesses of Arendelle. These two characters are defined by, pun intended, the polar opposite ways in which they express and experience love and the lack of it. They're like yin and yang, hot and cold. Anna is warm, bouncy, and extroverted, wearing her heart on her sleeve, diving into situations without thinking, and always freely expressing what's on her mind. Elsa is cold, reserved, and introverted, keeping her cards close to her chest and never fully revealing what exactly is going on with her. Elsa, of course, is like this for a reason. After almost accidentally killing Anna with her ice powers as a child, Elsa is almost exclusively isolated to her room until she can learn to control her powers, something she notably doesn't resist. You might think she wouldn't want to be cooped up like that, but the combination of the trauma of almost killing her sister and the love and trust she has for her parents and their decisions thoroughly ingrains in her the idea that there is something fundamentally wrong with her, and that these measures are necessary to prevent her from hurting others. This internal conflict informs Elsa's character arc throughout the film, and is especially relevant in several defining moments. The first of these is when her powers are revealed during her coronation ball. After getting in an argument with Anna and being told she only knows how to shut people out, Elsa shuts down the ball and commands for the castle gates to be closed once again. The argument then escalates until Anna asks this question:
"What are you so afraid of?"
The answer is, of course, revealing her ice powers, which is exactly what happens next. The next defining moment of Elsa's character arc happens right after, when she runs away and builds an ice castle, all while singing the song Let It Go. Let's talk about Let It Go for a moment. This song has been widely criticized as annoying and shallow, but the truth is it's anything but those things. People only consider it annoying because of how often it was played on the radio, and they consider it shallow because they don't pay attention to the lyrics or don't understand what the song is about. Let It Go is not a feminist anthem nor a song of empowerment. It's a song about a character driven to the brink of despair and choosing to throw away everything that matters. The fact that it musically sounds like an anthem is brilliant because that's how Elsa feels in the moment, and while we are meant to sympathize with Elsa, we're not meant to think that what she's doing is healthy or positive. And that is made clear by Elsa's next defining character moment. Anna and Kristoff arrive at her ice castle and inform her that she inadvertently set off an eternal winter back in Arendelle. It turns out she can't just let it go. Her choices have consequences. However, when given the chance to return and make things right, Elsa is still unable to do so, and as she metaphorically digs her heels in harder, she ends up accidentally freezing Anna's heart. Elsa is later captured by Prince Hans, who I will talk about more later, and finds herself in her darkest moment yet, on the run from men trying to kill her and believing that she has killed her sister. I'll come back to this later, but for now let me just say that Elsa is a complex and layered character, and the story doesn't shy away from fully exploring the depths of her struggles and doesn't pull any punches in how emotionally devastating any of it is. Let's talk about Anna, the other main character. Anna is just as layered and complex as Elsa is, but doesn't seem to get nearly as much attention. Just like Elsa, Anna was also isolated as a child, spending her childhood alone in the castle, always wishing for a relationship with her sister and the opportunity to have more in her life. Anna's defining character trait is her naive optimism, and just like Elsa, Frozen isn't afraid to put Anna through the ringer in terms of challenging this core character trait of hers. First, Anna's attempts to get Elsa to listen to her result in Elsa closing the gates, and then running away and setting off an eternal winter. Then, Anna's attempt to once again talk to Elsa results in getting her heart frozen. Finally, her attempts to unfreeze her heart by getting a true love's kiss from Hans results in the revelation that Hans is in fact evil. Let's talk about Hans for a moment. Hans is easily one of the most controversial aspects of Frozen, especially the aforementioned revelation close to the end of the film, in which we learn that he's been a villain the entire time. Now, in early drafts of the screenplay, Elsa actually was going to be the villain, until apparently the directors heard the newly written song Let It Go, and realized that it made far more sense for Elsa to be a misunderstood character who's ultimately redeemed. Many of the film's naysayers point to this as the moment when Frozen supposedly went off the rails and became bad, citing Hans being the villain as an obviously rushed and poor choice only made because the writers had written themselves into a corner and had nowhere else to go. This could not be further from the truth. Hans' villainy is a brilliant creative choice that not only fits the story perfectly, but was masterfully woven in a way that makes it feel like it was always the plan from the start. So, a big theme in Frozen is misguided love causing people to do harmful things. It's pretty much everything Anna and Elsa's parents do. It's Elsa's decision to run away, and it's Anna's falling in love with Hans. Hans's villainy and its thematic contribution to Frozen was not shoehorned in. It was set up in one of the first scenes of the film. But Hans's villainy adds much more to the story and theme than just that. Some people have suggested that Hans should have been a genuine love interest for Anna, but if that were the case, then he would not add anything to the story at all, even if Elsa were the villain. In that hypothetical story, you could take Hans out and absolutely nothing else would change, since the main conflict is still between Anna and Elsa, and Hans wouldn't be contributing to it. By being a villain, not only does Hans now have an active role in the story, but he also brings out the film's main theme of love in a way that would not happen if he weren't there. Frozen has already shown us what sisterly love looks like and what misguided love looks like. Now it needs to show us what might look like love on the surface, but actually isn't. And that's what Hans's role in the story is. People act like Hans being a villain is some kind of twist, a complete surprise that came out of left field with no warning. But that is completely false. Hans was evil from his very first introduction. The first thing Hans does after meeting Anna is manipulate her by telling her everything she wants to hear and taking advantage of her naive optimism. Anna, of course, has spent almost her entire life growing up alone in a castle with almost no social interaction or practical knowledge of the outside world, and Hans manipulates this to his own advantage, getting her to agree to marry him almost instantly, something no rational person would ever do. And to drive the point home, Elsa immediately says this upon hearing the news.
You can't marry a man you just met.
Elsa is the voice of reason here, the obvious adult response to Anna's childishness. Kristoff also reacts exactly the same way, even asking Anna if her parents ever warned her about strangers. This is the movie telling us, as plainly as it possibly can, that Hans is not Anna's true love. Hans is in the movie to show us the difference between romantic infatuation and true love, because contrary to popular opinion, they are not the same thing. Unfortunately, most people seem to really need this movie's message because they take the obviously manipulative relationship between Anna and Hans seriously. But even beyond that, at this point in the movie, it should be clear that Hans is not who he appears to be. Yes, the movie does give us a red herring villain with the Duke of Wesselton, and it's not immediately obvious that Hans is actually evil, but when that revelation does happen, it makes perfect sense and lines up with everything we've seen of Hans. Why any adult who understands even the basics of storytelling would consider Hans' villainy to be a left-field decision that clashes with the rest of the movie is utterly baffling to me and makes me seriously question the state of public media literacy. Hans' villainy does not come out of nowhere, it does not clash with the rest of the film, and it is in fact essential and integral to the functioning of the story and its main theme. Now I know what some of you may be thinking right now. But what about this scene where Hans smiles at Anna when no one but the audience can see him? Doesn't that contradict him being a villain? No. Hans smiles because he now knows that his plan will be easy, which he reveals later in the movie.
Hans!
You were so desperate for love, you were willing to marry me just like that.
We're supposed to think he likes her at this point, but in retrospect, we understand that he's smiling for another reason. Is this really that hard to understand? Okay, now let's talk about Kristoff, the fourth main character of Frozen. Kristoff is actually the first main character introduced in the movie, as we see him as a child in the opening scene. And, quick note about this scene, the song Frozen Heart is brilliant because it sets up the entire story and theme of the movie, mentioning love, fear, frozen hearts, and the beauty found within once you take the time to look for it. And all of that in a song about chopping ice that also introduces the world the story takes place in and two of the principal characters, Kristoff and Sven. Seriously, this movie is way smarter than anyone gives it credit for. So Kristoff of course ends up being Anna's love interest by the end of Frozen. But let's look at how he gets there. When Anna and Kristoff first meet, they don't exactly get along. Anna has to practically bribe Kristoff to get him to take her to the North Mountain, and he expresses skepticism and amusement at her plan to talk to Elsa, and in general views her as naive and incompetent. On the surface, he seems a lot less caring and kind to her than Hans does. But the truth is of course the exact opposite. Kristoff treats Anna like an adult and an equal. He isn't afraid to be himself around her, and he isn't afraid to be honest with her when he thinks she's making a bad decision. And in this awesome moment, when they have to jump over a crevasse to escape a pack of wolves, Kristoff puts Anna's life ahead of his own. And most notably, despite eventually developing feelings for her, Kristoff brings Anna back to Hans, putting her well-being above his own. He's a great character. Now of course, Frozen wouldn't be a Disney movie without sidekicks, and the sidekicks in Frozen are all great. The trolls are simultaneously hilarious and insightful, with Fixer Upper being an extremely underrated song. Sven is great, especially the running joke of Kristoff pretending to talk for him, which eventually becomes an important moment in the story when Sven isn't saying what Kristoff thinks he is. And of course, we have to talk about Olaf. Olaf is perhaps one of the most loved and hated Disney characters, and while I personally love him, I do understand why some people don't. He's been merchandised to death, he starred in his own Disney Plus series, which is just him retelling various Disney movies, and somewhat infamously, he starred in the half-hour special Olaf's Frozen Adventure, which was bafflingly played in theaters before the Pixar film Coco, and actually made people get up and check to make sure they were in the right theater. So while it is understandable that people would find Olaf and his perceived overuse by Disney annoying, just looking at him in Frozen, he's great. He's easily one of the funniest Disney sidekicks ever, with almost all of his lines being instantly quotable, and if you don't laugh at some of these jokes, I really don't know what to tell you.
And who's the funky-looking donkey over there?
That's Sven?
Uh-huh. And who's the reindeer?
Winter's a good time to stay in and cuddle, but put me in summer and I'll be a happy snowman!
However, like the best Disney sidekicks, Olaf is far deeper than he at first appears and plays an integral role in Frozen's story. He represents Elsa's childhood innocence before her accident, and also the potential for her to be redeemed. He also is arguably the most crucial character in Frozen's climactic scenes. By the end of the movie, Anna and Elsa have both been brought to their lowest point, with both Elsa's desire to be accepted and Anna's belief in optimism being shattered. Elsa has the entire kingdom against her, and Anna is about to die of a frozen heart. At this point, Anna gives up and resigns herself to her fate, admitting that she doesn't even know what love is. Olaf, however, tells her that love is putting someone else's needs before yours, like what Kristoff has been doing for her pretty much the entire movie. It's at this point that Anna realizes that Kristoff loves her and believes that sharing a true love's kiss with him will save her life. Quick side note, I've seen people complain that Olaf almost melting to keep Anna warm should qualify as an act of true love and thaw her frozen heart. The problem with this is that Anna must perform the act of true love. Anyway, continuing. When Anna goes outside into the storm to kiss Kristoff, she sees Hans about to kill Elsa and decides to save Elsa's life instead of her own. As she puts her hand up to block Hans' sword, she freezes solid, and everyone thinks she's dead. I appreciate that the movie lingers on this moment and lets the weight of it really sink in. Of course, her sacrifice is an act of true love, and so she comes back to life. Elsa realizes that love is the key to controlling her powers, and everyone lives happily ever after except for Hans and the Duke of Wesselton. Frozen's climactic scenes are a brilliant culmination of the film's themes, story threads, and character arcs. Elsa learns that she is capable of being loved. Anna learns what true love really is, and the movie itself makes one of the most compelling and mature statements on love in any Disney film, and any film for that matter. Love is not just romance, love is not just what your intentions are, love is not always obvious, and true love brings out the best in people. I think this film's thesis on love is so strong, in fact, that when people have asked me my opinions on love, I like to tell them that the three best works on the subject are 1 Corinthians 13, Shakespeare's Sonnet 116, and the movie Frozen. However, Frozen even goes beyond that, because it also serves to comment on Disney's animated filmography. Obviously, the line "you can't marry a man you just met" is a direct reference to several animated fairy tales such as Snow White and Cinderella, but the movie in general expands the understanding of love found in movies such as those. For the record, I'm not saying those movies are bad, far from it, they're among the best films of all time, but their themes are clearly limited in scope, and as time goes on, it's important to expand and build on them, which is exactly what Frozen does. It takes the themes that have always defined Disney films and simultaneously criticizes some of the ideas contained within while reaffirming the core message. And all packaged in a beautifully animated, majestic, funny, and moving film that contains and expands on all the elements of a Disney classic. This is why it baffles me when people say that they think Tangled is better than Frozen, an extremely common opinion that everyone expressing insists is unpopular somehow. Tangled is not a bad film. It's actually extremely good, but it's conventionally good. It features a very conventional romance, a very conventional evil stepmother type villain, the same types of songs we usually get in these kind of fairy tale films, and the same types of basic character arcs for its leads. It's a very by-the-numbers story with exceptionally good execution that does almost nothing to challenge the audience in any way. Frozen, on the other hand, completely flips the script, challenging the audience to rethink their preconceived notions about love and what a Disney film can be. Despite the current backlash against its popularity, I believe Frozen is destined to go down in history as one of the most important films in Disney's animated canon. Frozen is a masterpiece, and I think it's high time that people stopped calling it overrated. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching, and remember that you're extraordinary. I love all of you so much. Bye.